So 5 guys I think that are going to be traded or at least moved, or the conversation will be that in the next 24 hours. Starting with number 1, Timothy Liljegren. I think Liljegren for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's on the out. He wasn't even on the main roster for the last preseason game. I think Liljegren, 25 years old, right shot defenseman. I think he could be a guy that is looked at as a potential trade target for a lot of teams, and Toronto clearly wants to open up some cap space. Anaheim, Cam Fowler. I think he's a guy that you need to look at as a veteran presence that maybe the Ducks would be willing to retain some cap on. When I look at Cam Fowler specifically, steady defenseman over the years. I think he could still be a top 4 defenseman in the right situation today. Maybe put him next to a more younger two-way guy. I think there's a lot of perspectives around the league right now. I think even a team like Detroit could look at Cam Fowler. I believe he played I think he played with Windsor in the OHL, so he knows that area somewhat. I think, again, Detroit's just an example of that. Maybe Cam Fowler could partner with a young guy like Moritz Seider. So I'll throw Detroit there as a hot take. I know teams like Toronto have been in the conversation as well. Maybe Anaheim would be willing to take a crack at Calle Jarnkrok and Timothy Liljegren. So maybe there could be a trade there. I think that's definitely, there's an opportunity there. The New York Islanders, Pierre Engvall, he's starting as a scratch to open the season after that long-term deal. I don't know if there's going to be a trade for him, though. Like, I think when you look at that deal, long-term for Pierre Engvall, 7 years, a lot of Islanders fans were nervous. Leaf fans looking at their former player and the perspective of what he was with like a David Kampf on the 4th line. 7 years is a risky commitment, and it's already showing to be risky. So could the Islanders get out of that contract? Could they maybe trade? Well, I'm going back to the Detroit Red Wings because they signed Justin Hall to that 3-year, over $3 million contract, or $3 million per year. And Justin Hall's on the outs of that top 6 defense group in Detroit. You can't have that. You can't have $3 million sitting in the press box every night. So either he's cycling in every other game, or you're maybe looking for a trade outlet. Could the Islanders and Red Wings make a swap maybe? Could they? I don't know. I actually think they could. I think 2 former Leafs, we'll see, but I think that's a funny perspective as well. That's number 4. And number 5, and I think this one is interesting, but I think it's more so on the lens that he's getting older. And again, I think when you look at the team itself, are they going to be a playoff team or not? And I'm looking at the Minnesota Wild with Jesper Wallstedt coming in. They have Gustafsson and they have this guy named Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm not saying it's going to be Fleury moved, but I'm saying that they could see one of those goalies moved. If Wallstedt shows the progression that I think he could this year, I think Minnesota, and frankly, I'm just going to say Minnesota in general, could be making a move in the next 24 hours. I think Minnesota is definitely one of those teams to watch out for, because maybe they just stand pat and just go, okay, we'll go into the season. Wallstedt, maybe whether he's AHL, NHL, it doesn't matter. We're going to go into the season how it is, see how the goalies perform, see how the team performs. If we're nowhere near a playoff spot, there's going to be changes made. And again, reminder, Kaprizov's 2 years removed from UFA status. That's something to keep in mind. So with that, I think there's going to be a lot of moves in the next 24 hours. As I said at the start of the stream, start of the video, teams have to submit their final rosters cap compliant. They have to be cap compliant for Monday, which is tomorrow. And then the regular season for the NHL starts on Tuesday. So you've got a lot of great matchups. You've got new expansion or relocated teams matching up. You've got Toronto, Montreal, like rivalries like that. That's Wednesday night in Montreal. So the NHL's kicking off with a lot of great matchups. I think another storyline to look at is the Utah Hockey Club. What's going to happen with Utah? Because I think that's another conversation where, one, they've come from a struggling organization, an organization that couldn't break through for a long time, but then a lot of young and up-and-coming guys in Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley. And they're going to be a storyline in itself, because we've seen what Vegas did right off the bat, going to a Stanley Cup final, and then eventually years later winning a Stanley Cup. You look at the Seattle Kraken, rough year last year, but first year making the playoffs. Utah, Coming from Arizona, getting out from the Coyote situation, could Utah make the playoffs in the first year? We'll see.